More than 90% of counties with nearly complete results shifted towards former President Donald J. Trump in the 2024 presidential election. We see some of the most significant movements in counties with a high percentage of Hispanic voters. Out of 228 counties that are at least 25% Hispanic, there was an average shift of 9.5 points towards Trump compared to 2020, intensifying the trend we had already noted in that cycle. Likewise, the 290 counties where less than half the electorate is white saw an average shift of nearly 7 points, including, of course, a lot of urban counties. Notably, counties with a high proportion of young voters, aged 18 to 34, also demonstrated a considerable swing. This context helps explain the pronounced arrows you see on the map in states like Texas and Florida, where the statewide results jumped from a Trump margin of just plus 5.6 and plus 3.4 in 2020 to plus 14 and plus 13, respectively. These are strikingly strong numbers for Trump, particularly driven by shifts among Hispanic men. On the flip side, some of the more pronounced swings toward Democrats occurred in the Atlanta suburbs, which have expanded and diversified in recent years, drawing a significant number of college graduates. However, it's interesting to note that inner-city counties in Atlanta, such as Fulton, DeKalb, and Clayton, shifted slightly to the right. That, combined with stronger rural margins for Trump, ensured his victory in the state. Outside of Georgia, Colorado remained firmly blue, shifting even further left relative to the national trend. Nebraska and Kansas also continued their leftward trajectory compared to the rest of the country. Now let's delve into the most intriguing part of this cycle. Take a look at this map, which reflects how each state has shifted compared to the 2020 election. Here are the raw numbers, calculated simply by subtracting the 2024 margin from the 2020 margin. Remember, these figures are preliminary. Several states, especially on the West Coast, could still see shifts in various directions. Notably, Washington is the only state that has shifted left since 2020, albeit slightly. The most significant pro-Trump shifts are visible in the deep blue Northeast, including in New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Maryland, along with the previously mentioned Florida and Texas. In California, the current margin is likely much narrower than it will be in the final count, as late-arriving absentee ballots, which are expected to lean Democratic, have yet to be fully counted. But even then, it will remain among the most Republican-trending states. Here's where it gets truly fascinating, because the most significant pro-Trump shifts occurred in highly populous states. The shift in the national popular vote in Trump's favor is outpacing the shift in most states. As of the morning of November 8th, Donald Trump is on track to win the national popular votes by somewhere between 1 to 2 points, most likely closer to 2, with the final tally between both candidates expected to be around 78 million to 75 million. This reflects about a 6-point national shift since 2020, when Joe Biden won the popular vote by 4.5 points. With that in mind, here is the 2024 map when accounting for the national popular vote shift between 2020 and 2024. 37 out of 50 states actually trended to the left relative to the nation as a whole. To be clear, this doesn't really mean anything. Trump won almost every state by a greater margin than he did in 2020. The states shaded in a darker shade of blue on this map simply moved less in his direction than others. Narrowing in on just the core battleground states that swung the outcome in favor of Trump, let's start in Georgia. Trump is projected to win Georgia by a margin of about 2 percentage points, at 51% to 49%, and by a raw vote margin of about 115,000 votes. Joe Biden won Georgia with less than 12,000 votes in 2020, and for Harris to hold on to the states, she would have needed to expand on Biden's margins in Atlanta, Fulton County, and the surrounding suburbs. Thus far, however, she's gotten about the same share in the Atlanta area, while Trump has improved his vote share in rural areas and small cities by about 80,000 votes. Trump is also projected to win North Carolina by about 3 points, with a 51 to 48% vote split. The Tar Heel state was his narrowest win in 2020, with its population centers, Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, and Raleigh, Wake County, plus Durham, posting big shifts toward Democrats in both 2016 and 2020. This year, those urban centers saw a marginal shift toward Trump, while the rural areas swung even more toward Trump. As for the Keystone states, Trump is projected to win Pennsylvania by about 2 points. Considered by many to be the single most important state of the cycle, we see the former president expanding his 2020 margins in the Commonwealth in the state's medium metros, rural areas, and small cities. He added about 60,000 votes to his 2020 margins in medium-sized cities like Erie and Allentown. Harris's share of the votes in Allegheny County was about what Biden earned in 2020, while Philadelphia continued to move slightly towards Republicans. Additionally, the suburbs, where Harris needed a strong performance to secure a win, moved towards Trump. A set of major suburban counties, identified by the Washington Post, swung by about 3 points to Trump on average since 4 years ago. Trump is also projected to flip Michigan by about 1.5 points and Wisconsin by a little under a point, which amazingly makes it 5 of the last 7 presidential elections in Wisconsin decided by less than 1%. These were the 2 states Trump was least likely to win, according to every major forecast and as per the polls throughout the cycle. Trump greatly outperformed his urban margins in Michigan since 2020, including in Detroit and Grand Rapids. He also added substantially to his vote margins in the state's suburbs and rural areas. Likewise, in Wisconsin, Trump improved on his 2020 margins in rural areas and small cities as well as medium metros. Harris's share in the Wisconsin suburbs are about in line with Biden's 2020 share, while the vote count in Wisconsin's only urban county, Milwaukee, continues to trend similarly as well. Now, as for the 2 Southwest battlegrounds of Arizona and Nevada, we're still ways out from the final numbers. Decision Desk HQ has called both states for Trump, but the AP has yet to make a projection in either. In Arizona, Maricopa, home to Phoenix, is far and away the biggest county in Arizona, accounting for about 2/3 of the statewide population. Democrats went from losing Maricopa by almost 150,000 votes in 2012 to winning by 44,000 in 2020, helping Biden flip the traditionally red state. We currently only have about 70% of the estimated vote reporting, and Trump leads by a little under 50,000 votes, though his margin here trails his statewide margin by about 2 points right now. As for Nevada, Clark, home to Las Vegas, accounts for more than 70% of the statewide vote. The vote count as of this morning suggests Harris will hold Clark, but by a significantly narrower margin than Biden did in 2020. And with the rest of the state leaning far more Republican, we see Trump leading the statewide vote by 4 points. Those are the preliminary analyses for each battleground state. Pundits and campaign analysts will continue to scrutinize the data in the coming days, weeks, months, and even years. And so will I. Be sure to subscribe below for more nonpartisan, unfiltered coverage like this. Thanks a lot for tuning in.